Imagine walking into a bank you own, only to be denied your own money. What happens next? A shocking revelation, a power move no one saw coming, and a downfall that shakes the entire industry. If you think this story was wild, just wait, because 1,000 more untold stories are coming. Power, betrayal, and justice. This is just the beginning. Subscribe to Dark Side of Luna now and never miss a single twist. Danielle Grayson, the esteemed CEO of Grayson Trust, decides to conduct an unannounced visit to one of her bank's branches, dressed casually to blend in. She wants to experience firsthand how everyday customers are treated. Approaching the counter, she requests a routine withdrawal, expecting a simple transaction. However, the moment she hands over her ID, the teller, a stiff-looking employee named Lisa, furrows her brows. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I need further verification before processing this," she says curtly. Danielle notices how other customers are receiving swift service, yet she is being stalled. She remains calm. "I have multiple accounts here. My ID matches. What seems to be the issue?" Lisa hesitates, then calls over the branch manager, Todd, a middle-aged man with an air of self-importance. He barely glances at Danielle before shaking his head. "For large withdrawals like this, we require additional clearance. You'll need to provide more proof." Danielle narrows her eyes. "Interesting. And what exactly constitutes proof beyond my official ID, account details, and years of banking with this institution?" Todd crosses his arms. "It's just protocol." A man in an expensive suit walks up to another teller and makes a similar withdrawal. No questions asked, no delays. Danielle watches closely. "Excuse me," she interjects, turning to Lisa and Todd. "That gentleman wasn't asked for additional proof." "Why is that?" Lisa stammers. Todd stiffens. "That's different," he mutters. Danielle takes a deep breath, then pulls out her phone. "I need security at this branch." Lisa and Todd exchange nervous glances. A few minutes later, the regional director, Michael Hampton, arrives, his expression tense. "Ms. Grayson, what's going on?" Todd's face drains of color. "Ms. Grayson," he echoes. Danielle steps forward, her voice firm. "Yes, that Ms. Grayson, the CEO of this bank. And I just experienced firsthand the bias and unfair treatment happening under my own roof." The branch falls silent. Customers and employees freeze. Todd stutters an apology, but Danielle holds up a hand. "Enough. I've seen what I need to see." Turning to Michael, she states, "Effective immediately, this branch is under review. Bias training, customer service reform, and a new accountability system will be implemented across every location. And Todd, your time with Grayson Trust ends today." Todd opens his mouth to argue, but Michael has already nodded in agreement. As Danielle exits, murmurs spread throughout the bank. Customers exchange looks of admiration. Some take out their phones, recording as the news spreads. The incident sparks a nationwide conversation about fairness in banking. Other financial institutions scramble to implement their own changes. And at every Grayson Trust branch moving forward, customers notice a difference because one woman stood up, took action, and refused to let injustice slide. Just as Danielle steps out of the bank, her phone buzzes with an urgent message from her executive assistant. "Danielle, there's a major issue. Someone leaked an internal memo. It's spreading fast." Danielle frowns and quickly opens the attachment. Her stomach drops. The memo, supposedly from corporate, outlines a secret, unofficial policy encouraging extra scrutiny on high-risk withdrawals from certain demographics. It's damning, almost as if someone inside the company wanted to ensure discrimination continued under the radar. Her jaw clenches. If this memo is real, it means the problem isn't just at a single branch. It's systemic. She calls Michael, the regional director. "Find out who authorized this memo. Now." But before he can respond, a second notification pings on her screen. A news article headline, "Leaked Memo Exposes Grayson Trust's Discriminatory Banking Practices. CEO Under Fire, Danielle's Pulse Races." The story has already hit the media, twisting the narrative to make it seem like she condoned the policy. She barely has time to react when her assistant calls. "Danielle, there's more. A high-level executive from our competitor, Monarch Financial, is fueling this. They claim to have evidence that you personally approved these policies." Danielle tightens her grip on her phone. "Someone is trying to take me down. But who?" Back at headquarters, she storms into the boardroom where her legal and PR teams are scrambling to control the damage. Get me a list of everyone with access to policy documentation. I want to know who wrote that memo and who leaked it. Her tech security officer, Jacob, chimes in. We traced the document's origin to someone in corporate, but here's the catch. It was backdated and digitally manipulated. Danielle's eyes narrow. This was a setup. She exhales sharply. If this goes unchecked, it could destroy everything she's built, but she refuses to let that happen. Prepare a public statement, she says, and get me a meeting with Monarch Financial's CEO. If they want a war, I'll bring them the fight of their lives. She straightens her blazer, her determination renewed. This wasn't just about fixing one bank branch anymore. This was about exposing the corruption lurking beneath the surface of the entire industry. Danielle knew she had to act fast. The news was spreading like wildfire, and the public was already forming opinions. If she didn't get ahead of this, she'd lose control of the narrative. But before she could issue her statement, another shock hit. Her CFO, Marcus, burst into her office, his face pale. Danielle, we just got an anonymous tip. You need to see this. He handed her a folder. Inside were internal transaction records from Monarch Financial. At first glance, they seemed standard, but then she saw it. Millions of dollars in mysterious transactions, some traced to accounts owned by Grayson Trust executives. Her breath caught. Some of her own top executives had been secretly funneling money through Monarch Financial. This wasn't just a PR attack, it was corporate sabotage. Her mind raced. Who inside her own company was betraying her? Before she could process it all, her assistant rushed in. Danielle, there's someone in the lobby demanding to speak with you. Says he has proof of who leaked the memo. She barely had time to react before a security guard stepped forward, escorting in a nervous-looking young teller, the very same one from the bank branch where this all started. He looked terrified. Ms. Grayson, I don't know who else to trust, but I have to tell you the truth. Danielle gestured for him to sit. Go on, he swallowed hard. I overheard the branch manager, Todd, talking to someone on the phone after you left. He was bragging that the plan worked, that you took the bait. Danielle felt her stomach tighten. Bait? The teller nodded. He said someone inside corporate made sure you went to that branch, that they wanted you to experience the discrimination firsthand, so they could activate the next phase. Her blood ran cold. This entire thing was staged. Someone inside Grayson Trust had deliberately put her in that situation, ensured it escalated, and then leaked the fake memo to make her look complicit. She clenched her fists. Who was Todd talking to? The teller hesitated, then whispered a name. Danielle's own vice president of compliance. She leaned back, connecting the dots at lightning speed. The leaked memo, the sabotage, the secret transactions, this was an inside coup. Someone wanted her gone. She exhaled slowly, but they underestimated her. She turned to Marcus. We're flipping the script. Issue a press conference immediately, but not to defend ourselves, to expose everything. He nodded, already dialing. Within an hour, the world was watching as Danielle Grayson took the stage, poised and unshaken. I have come forward today not just to address the accusations against me, but to expose something far more dangerous. She laid it all out, the sabotage, the corporate espionage, the fraudulent transactions, the attempt to remove her from power, and then the knockout punch. We have undeniable proof that executives from Monarch Financial and members of my own company conspired to stage this attack. But let me be clear, Grayson Trust stands for integrity, and I will personally see to it that every individual responsible faces the full force of the law. The room erupted with questions, cameras flashing. The public was no longer seeing her as a villain. They were seeing her as a warrior. Monarch Financial scrambled to deny involvement, but it was too late. Investigations were launched. The corrupt executives in her company were arrested. And Todd? He was already fleeing the country when the authorities caught him. As the dust settled, Danielle sat back in her chair, exhaling for the first time in days. Her assistant knocked. There's a call for you. She picked up. Who is this? A deep voice on the other end chuckled. Congratulations, Ms. Grayson. You won this round. But the game isn't over yet. Danielle's grip tightened on the phone. If they thought this was over, they had no idea who they were dealing with. Danielle didn't flinch. Whoever was on the other end of that call, whoever still thought they could control her, was about to regret underestimating her. She leaned forward, her voice calm but sharp. "You're right. The game isn't over. But here's the thing. I don't lose." She hung up. By now the media was no longer painting her as a corrupt CEO. She was a hero. A woman who took down a conspiracy from the inside and refused to let corporate greed and corruption win. Grayson Trust's stock, which had plummeted during the scandal, was suddenly soaring. Customers who had closed accounts, they were coming back in droves. And Danielle? She wasn't done making things right. She launched a full-scale internal audit, overhauling company policies, and firing anyone connected to the scheme. She established a whistleblower protection program inside Grayson Trust, so no employee would ever fear exposing corruption again. And the best part? Monarch Financial, the bank that had tried to take her down, they were the ones collapsing. Their executives were indicted for fraud, their CEO forced to resign, and their biggest clients were pulling out to do business with Danielle instead. She didn't just survive, she won. One morning weeks later, Danielle sat at her desk when her assistant walked in with a grin. "You have a visitor." In stepped the young teller who had come forward, the one who risked everything to tell her the truth. He looked nervous. I just wanted to say thank you. I lost my job after I exposed Todd, and I wasn't sure if I did the right thing." Danielle smiled. "You did." She slid an envelope across the desk. He hesitated. "What's this?" She nodded toward it. "An offer letter. If you're interested, I'd like you to come work for me. You stood up for what was right when no one else would. We need people like you here." His eyes widened. You mean it?" She chuckled. "I don't say things I don't mean. Welcome to Grayson Trust." Tears filled his eyes as he shook her hand, realizing that his bravery had not only exposed corruption, but also changed his own future. As Danielle watched him leave, she let out a deep breath. This entire experience had been brutal, but in the end it made her, and her company, stronger than ever. And as for whoever had been on that phone call, whoever thought they still had control, they would soon learn Danielle Grayson never played by anyone's rules but her own.